Hey everyone, Grayson the Bard here, and welcome back to day 85 of the Hunt a Day. We are still in Frontier. I am getting to the point where I think I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from Frontier. I'm starting to feel a little bit of burnout on Frontier and want to go back to some other games, check out some other monsters, continue my training arc for Fatalis for the finale of the series, since that is going to be approaching a lot faster than I anticipated, I think. But until then, I am still plugging away, still showing off new Frontier monsters. And today we are going to be showing off one of the earlier monsters that was added in Frontier, Goren Zuru. And for today, because this fight actually went really quick, I recorded two hunts this morning. One of the regular version of Goren Zuru in G rank, and one of the hardcore version of Goren Zuru. So I'm going to be kind of talking about both. And something that I actually noticed, or not noticed, but started thinking about when I was doing this fight, is how I feel like the hardcore monsters are almost like the true fight versions. Like if these monsters come back, I feel like Capcom is going to pull a lot of their move pool more from the hardcore versions than the regular, or at least like incorporate those into like the low, high, master rank ladder, rather than have them be their own separate thing. But I'll talk about that more in a little bit. So, Goren Zuru is a flying wyvern that actually has a pretty simple design. It's got the standard, like, Rathalos-Rathian frame. Two wings, big tail, and then a predominant, like, facial feature. In Goren Zuru's case, it is a massive elongated horn. It has a lot of shark-like features. It really does... Like, it was a shark before Zamtrios was... And I really like him. I think he's neat. I think he's very simple. He is not, like, too crazily designed. The big, like, massive horn on the front of his head is his, like, defining feature. And even that, I feel, is not, super out of place in the series when we have stuff like Diablos, or, hell, even, like, Nibblesnarf with his big dumb mouth and his glowing medulla oblongata. No, that's not it. That's brain. What's the mouth thing? The hanging mouth? Uvula. That's what I'm thinking. Like the Nibblesnarf's big glowing uvula. Oh god. Okay. I know words. I know. This is why I don't teach science in my day job. But anyway, so Goren Zuru is a big shark-based flying wyvern. But what's interesting, again, I do a little bit of research on these monsters before I hit record on the Monster Hunter Wiki, which is not always the most accurate source, but, it can be sometimes. And according to that, Goren Zuru, in the lore of the game, is actually, in general, a pretty docile creature until threatened. And in the Highlands map, if you've been watching the hunts, you've seen, the little ram creatures and the big, bison. Apparently, Goren Zuru will actually, take those herbivores under its wing and protect them until it runs out of other food options that it prefers to eat, and then it will eat them. But for the most part, it acts as a protector to these herbivores, which I really think is neat, and I wish that were something that, Frontier were able to show off in gameplay. They probably could, but it was, for earlier released monsters, it was probably a lot harder, because they were still predominantly using, Monster Hunter DOS for the PS2 as a framework for their game. It is really easy to tell, at least for me, which monsters were added early on in Frontier's life cycle versus which ones were added later. I think the more wild, crazy designs and wild, crazy AI stuff that they do is always going to be something that's added later in the game, whereas the more, this looks like something that you could see as a design in an early Monster Hunter, those are, I feel, always going to be, this was added very early on in the game, or added before they started adding G-rank stuff. And I think that's neat to see, how the designs progress as the game goes on. Let's talk about the fight. I haven't talked about the fight much at all. I've just been waxing philosophical about, this thing's existence. The fight's fine. The fight's cool, especially the normal version. It is a very, physical-based monster. That has a couple water-based attacks. You'll see it, shoot out a beam of water, or a lot of flying wyverns in this game have a dive bomb attack that does an AoE after. And I really like how this AoE Doesn't seem to do a lot of damage, but it does like knock you back and cause you to stumble, which could open you up for bigger openings. Goren Zuru is definitely more of a physical threat, using its horn and tail as its primary methods of attack, with its element, its water-based attacks, being more secondary and not the prime focus of the monster. Even in its hardcore version, it gains a lot more physical moves. You will see it like dig up chunks of earth and cause more earth tremors. Even though it does also gain some new water moves, you'll see it like blast out a water ball that will then fragment into smaller, like ricocheting water bombs. And I think that's cool that they decide to go that route of like, yes, the element is here, but this is mostly a physical powerhouse. It's kind of like, it reminds me a lot of Diablos, but if Diablos also had an element. Or I guess with the single Longhorn, Monoblos might be a better basis. But yeah, the hardcore version of the hunt definitely feels like it has a lot more going on. And it might just be because I have pretty powerful weapons and I have pretty powerful NPC hunters with me. But the regular version went down really easy, but I actually felt like the hardcore version, I was on my toes and I needed to, like actually pay attention to the fight instead of just swinging wildly with the tonfa, which I do feel like I'm getting better at. And that's another thing that's really nice, is I am really enjoying tonfa. But I do also want to try out some of the other extreme style weapons. Like, I heard extreme style hunting horn, you can actually debuff the monster with your songs instead of just buffing your other hunters, and that sounds cool as hell. So I want to try that out. But in terms of like fight and design, Goren Zuru is cool. I like him. He is not too over the top. He is not too crazy. I really like his color palette, design-wise. The deep blues and then just like the streaks of red going down his body, I think is really nice and adds good contrast without being like too out there. Yeah, I like Goren Zuru. I think he's cool, and I think he's a monster who we could easily see again in a Monster Hunter game. I think something I've noticed with like the way that I've been ranking monsters is the monsters that have more like interesting but not potentially fleshed out ecological lore are the ones that I think are more likely to return in Wilds, with how focused Wilds is on the ecological side of things and creating that living, breathing ecosystem. The whole stuff I mentioned with Goren Zuru earlier about him being like a protector to herbivores until, there's a storm or until something threatens them, I think that's something they could show off in Wilds, and I would not be surprised if they took Wilds as an opportunity to bring Goren Zuru back to show off that more interesting aspect of his lore. So I'm going to say Goren Zuru has a pretty high chance of coming back in Wilds. Let's say like a 7 or 8. 7 or 8 to come back in Wilds. And then I think pretty high chance as well to come back in a future game. I'll also say like a 7 or 8. That is where I'm going to wrap up the ramble for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Please stick around until the end of the hunt if you can. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Don't if you don't. And until next time, I'll see you next time.